Mysterious creatures from the Book of Jasher found on a Mayan Stela. This article was published by the Ancient Astronaut Archive on July 4th, 2016, by me. Hello, I'm Michael David Moreno. Now, I'm not part of the Ancient Astronaut Archive, but I do support their work. So if you give a moment, go ahead and check out their website or check out their videos on YouTube. They are a great resource of information about the ancient past. So let's get on with the article. The Book of Jasher is an alternate narrative of the events that happened in the Old Testament, or Torah. Some of the stories are rather odd and mysterious. One such story is about an encounter with strange beasts called yemim. They were described as small men or children with the heads of bears and long tails that came out from behind their shoulders. In an attempt to describe what was seen, there are descriptions for two more creatures whose names remain a mystery: the Kephas and the Duchifahath. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so please excuse me. This story is told by a man named Anach, that these creatures rode off with his charge of donkeys. Apparently, he was believable enough that the inhabitants of the land never returned to that area. Anach is mentioned in the Book of Jasher as a man who lived in the times of Esau, the elder twin brother of Jacob, who became the patriarch of the Israelites. Esau moved his family to the land of Seir, which he had conquered. His children married with the inhabitants. Anach is therefore a grandson to both Esau and Seir the Horide, of who the land is named after. This particular story is told in the Book of Jasher, chapter 36, verses 28 through 35. It reads, "And Anach, this was the Anach who found the Yemim in the wilderness when he fled the asses of Zibeon, his father. And whilst he was feeding his father's asses, he led them to the wilderness at different times to feed them. And there was a day when he brought them to one of the deserts on the seashore opposite the wilderness of the people. And whilst he was feeding them, behold, a very heavy storm came from the other side of the sea and rested upon the asses that were feeding there, and they all stood still. And afterwards, about 120 great and terrible animals came out from the wilderness at the other side of the sea, and they all came to the place where the asses were, and they placed themselves there. And those animals, from their middle downward, were in the shape of the children of men. And from their middle upward, some had the likeness of bears, and some the likeness of Kephas, with tails behind them from between their shoulders, reaching down to the earth, like the tails of the Duchifath. And these animals came and mounted and rode upon the asses and led them away, and they went away unto this day. And one of these animals approached Anach and smote him with his tail, and then he fled from that place. And when he saw this work, he was exceedingly afraid for his life, and he fled and escaped to the city. And he related to his sons and brothers all that had happened to him, and many men went to seek the asses, but could not find him. And Anach and his brothers went no more to that place from that day following, for they were greatly afraid of their lives." Mount Seir is on the southern border of where modern Israel and Jordan meet, just north of the Gulf of Aqaba, the eastern sea that borders the Sinai Peninsula, which is part of Egypt. The Gulf of Aqaba runs into the Red Sea and finally out through the Gulf of Aden to the northeastern Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea. So, what are these creatures doing in a stela found in El Bal, Guatemala? This stela shows a bare-chested, non-muscle frame of a male. His bare head looks like a helmet. It even shows that in the eye hole of the helmet there's a smaller eye inside. The bare-shaped head covering is connected to an apparatus around his neck, which is connected to a tube-shaped object and a box of some kind. Is it a breathing apparatus? Could this tube be called a tail to someone who had never seen a tube? It is missing the length to be considered a tail, but we are not given clear view of what is behind him except the legs of his victim tripping behind him. Down behind his left knee, there is a tube shape, but it is cut off by the stela itself. Could this be part of that tail? Even stranger, his bare helmet looks like it is breathing out fire as he stands in dominance over another figure. The story from the Book of Jasher is lacking in the way that it describes how these little bare-helmeted men traveled between the wilderness on the other side of the sea, then through the sea to where these donkeys were so quickly, and how their storm mesmerized the donkeys long enough to be mounted on and stolen. Did they travel through sea or air? Something is missing, but perhaps there is a clue in the stela. At the top left, it looks like two clouds that resemble serpents facing each other. There appears to be some kind of tiny man holding out or onto a handle connected to what looks like a decorated purse type object. What is that object? There are so many mysteries about this stela. Currently, the stela is considered classic period, which is from 200 CE to 1000 CE. Esau was born around 2006 BC, which leaves a margin of about 3,000 years. And that's 3,000 years of possibility.